Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And this is episode 405.
Yeah.
Hey, you lot. We hope you are keeping well and safe. We hope you've had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related.
Hey, I thought I'd let you win this week.
Oh, you let me win.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Just so you know.
Chalked up to another victory. Let me get the spreadsheet out. That's another one for me. Lovely. So welcome to 405, everybody. Like I said, I hope you've had a good week and that you've done something Doctor Who. It's very warm here in the UK, so as expected, as on cue, every single time that I go to record, all of my neighbours are out with the lawnmowers and the hedge trimmers and all the rest of it. So if I've got some background noise, currently there's a guy across the rear parking area of my house with a full-on Karcher pressure washer thing doing his car, and the neighbour next door to me have got their lawnmower out. So if there's background noise, I do apologise. It's the UK for you. Anyone that's here in the UK will know this. Everyone just does nothing while the weather's sort of mediocre, and then as soon as the sun's out, bosh, everyone's in their garden doing all the things. So yeah, it's a bit of a warm. It's a really hot one today, dude, as well, isn't it? We've got a bit of a, I think it's like 30 odd degrees or something today.
I know. I've been moaning, saying, where's our summer? Because it's been dreadful. And now it's like baking, and I couldn't sleep last night because it's too hot. And now I'm like, I'll go away again.
Yeah.
But you talking about lawns, mate. I'm looking at mine, and it is like a jungle. And I only did it last week. So I need to get my mower out. But I'll wait till we finish the pod. I'll get this done first, and then I'll do the lawn. Yeah,
that is a thing, isn't it? It's like
it's
you mow it.
To look a bit wild.
Yeah, I think that's why grass grows really quickly in the UK. Because we have... It's not like when you're back in the US, bud, you probably have this. But whenever I've gone to the US or some other countries throughout summer, they have a proper summer. So you have at least a good run of like, a month, 5 weeks of just nice warm weather and sun. So typically the grass gets cooked or whatever. But here in the UK, we can't go for more than 5 days without there being a bit of rain and a bit of a shower. So ultimately the grass is like, yay! So the grass is getting fed with rain and sun, and so it just grows really quick. So as Adam said, you go out and cut your grass, like literally you put the lawnmower away, you go in your house, make a cup of tea, come out, and it's grown an inch like from when you cut it. So it's
if you stand and stare at it, you can't see it, and that's what fascinates me. Like if I just watch it, so it's like as soon as you turn its back, it goes whoop.
Mm-hmm. Crazy times, mate. Hey,
crazy.
Agricultural stuff aside, we are obviously here to talk Doctor Who. So you and I have been very quiet on the old Doctor Who front. Before we started recording, I've done nothing, mate. I've done nothing Doctor Who related.
Nothing Doctor Who related, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so that's all good. So we're going to jump straight into some news, which was a bit of a surprise one, I have to admit. That dropped in the last week. So let's land the old girl, and we'll see what's going on there. Rightio, so Big Finish, those dudes continue to provide somewhat up-to-date Doctor Who news if all the main stuff from the Beeb and Russell isn't providing any news. But this is a kind of a biggish one, depending on your love of this character and your if you are into Big Finish or not. So Big Finish announced in the week, last week, that Jodie Whittaker is returning already as the 13th Doctor alongside Mandip Gill as Yaz for Big Finish. So the reason why I say this is a bit of a surprising one is because, dude, we normally get this kind of thing from actors who have left Doctor Who years afterwards. Like there's typically a decent gap, right, of a few years. And you often get actors say, when they're leaving Doctor Who, especially someone who's played the Doctor, they always get asked, would you come back? Because ultimately, the people who are writing the show and everything, they've got decent foresight with this stuff. They're thinking ahead to, like, you know, the big anniversaries that we've had, the 50th, 60th, and when we get to the 70th anniversary and all that stuff, you know, they're eyeing up actors to come back and play the Doctor again, like David Tennant's done a couple of times, and a load of companions and whatnot. So usually actors will say, yeah, of course I'll return to Doctor Who. Unless you're Peter Capaldi, of course, who said both things on his way out. First of all, he said, absolutely not, I'm completely wrecked. I need to do something else. But then in another interview, he said, absolutely, you know, absolutely love Doctor Who and the show and the BBC and everything, so I'd come back. But yeah, you normally get actors say they'll come back at some point. But Jodie, she's like, nope, I want to carry on playing the Doctor. So how long has it been since she left? It must be, what? When was her last story?
Well, I'm trying to think, because is it 2 year and a half, something like that? Yeah, 2 years nearly, I don't know.
I think so. It's something like that, right? Yeah. So she hasn't been gone that long, dude. And we're not saying this in a negative way at all, you know, if you want to come back and get cracking and back. So the seed of the power of the Doctor was October 2022. So yeah, just under a couple of years, which is no time at all, really, in terms of like media and doing that stuff. So, dude, what do you think to Jodie coming back this soon to resume the Doctor role?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised in all honesty, because I know there's, you know, she's got her sort of core fan base that have been asking for her to come to Big Finish. I think even before she'd left the show, people were saying that she should do Big Finish, and I thought, yeah, well, she probably will, but not for a while, because like you said, actors normally, you know, like Christopher Eccleston, they went off and did lots of other things, and then, you know, distanced themselves from the role before decided to come back. And Chris has been very honest in interviews and said, you know, he does it for the money. He said, I'm an actor and this is what we do. And you know, they send me the scripts and we come to an agreement, and that was it. He's very sort of black and white about it, which I like. You got David come back and did it during COVID, because obviously, you know, work was difficult for actors during COVID. So to do audio was a lot easier for him, and he loved it. And then, yeah, you've got Jodie. And I was surprised because, you know, you would assume that they want to go off and do other things. Like they've done, you know, they've ticked that box, they've done Doctor Who. But I haven't seen her do anything much since. I think there was some drama that she did that was on some obscure, like satellite channel. I don't even know what that was called, but I haven't sort of heard much from her since she left Doctor Who. So maybe she just, I'm not saying like she can't get any work, but I'm just saying maybe this is to sort of fill in while she's doing other things. I don't know. Or maybe she just loves playing the Doctor that much that, you know, when she saw the script, she thought, yeah, I can do this. You know, I'd love to do this. So for me personally, mate, I mean, I think it's no secret we struggled through the Jodie era. And I think a lot of people are sort of going back and watching it and reevaluating it. I keep sort of wanting to do that, because Jodie's the Doctor that I've always wanted to like, but just can't get on board with. It's like, and you should never force yourself to like something. That's the thing. But I really do want to like a Doctor. I just find her incredibly irritating, and I don't know if I don't know if having her on audio would enhance that or make it better, because I can't imagine listening to her rambling on a load of nonsense, you know. But then again, you know, if they give her good scripts, I think her and Mandip could be really good on audio. So I'm a bit torn on this. I think for the Jodie fans, and she has, like every Doctor, got her fans, I think this is great news. And I saw a lot of people really excited about this, really happy about it. So I'm absolutely chuffed for them. But for me personally, I'm a little bit, I might dip into the first one just to see what it's like. It's like, I am curious. And I think if you'd have asked me this, you know, straight after the Jodie era, I would have said, oh God, no way, I'm not interested. But you start to sort of look back on things, and I don't know. Again, I would love to listen to the first one and say, do you know what? A bit like a lot of people did with Colin Baker when he did Big Finish, you know, he got great stories. A lot of people that weren't on board with his Doctor now absolutely love him because of how good he is on Big Finish. I would love to have the same thing happen for me with Jodie, if you know what I mean. I'd love to sort of listen to a couple and think, oh, she's really fun on audio. I really like her. But if I listen to it and she's just like, "Oh, I invented the Wellingtons-me," and I'm like, I just can't imagine listening to 12 hours of that. It would drive me mad. So, as with most things, mate, it'll come down to the writing for me, and I think I'll be curious enough to dip into the first one just to see what it's like. But yeah, so that's for me personally. But for those, those Jodie fans out there, I could see from the reaction on Twitter that, it's gone down really well, and they're really looking forward to it, so it's a good thing, I think. Yeah, it's and I would imagine Big Finish are absolutely thrilled to finally get a new series Doctor, because they've been chasing Matt and Capaldi for some time, haven't they? And now they've got Chris, David, and Jodie, so that's pretty good going for them, So yeah, they must be thrilled as a company to get them. Do you think you'll dip into it? Do you think you're going to listen? Are you like me? Are you curious to hear the first one?
I am. Yeah. I'll pick up the first story for sure. And I think you can... I think it's next year these stories are coming out, right? July 2025. I think they're going to start landing for her. So probably towards the end of this year we'll get some more info. And then the beginning of next year some pre-orders will come up and whatnot. So yeah, it's an interesting one, dude. Like you, and like we said many times when we went through all of Jodie's era and reviewed them all. You and I didn't really click that well with that era and with Jodie as the Doctor, which is so frustrating in a way because she's a great actress and she could have been, I don't know, we won't go down that road again, but there was some shortcomings there with some of the writing for her and whatnot. So who knows? I mean, the Big Finish guys, it's a whole different set of writers, they're not, although they have to adhere to what's happened canon-wise and lore and all that stuff, they're kind of separate from the main TV writers. So there's a little bit more, stuff that they could do there that will open up her character and the stories and stuff. So it might be cool. It might be cool. And there's been a few quotes. There's a link in the show notes to the story for this one, and there's a few quotes from different people and stuff. But just the one from Jodie, she says, "I'm over the moon to be joining Big Finish for more adventures in the TARDIS. Recording the 13th Doctor and Yaz is a really lovely thing to revisit. One of the things Mandip and I used to love on Doctor Who was getting in, doing a new episode and meeting a brand new cast. I just can't wait to step back into those boots, pull on the coat and get cracking. And one thing's for sure, it's going to be brilliant." Brilliant. So yeah, and finally Nick Briggs says, "Jodie and Mandip were so welcoming to me when I worked on set with them on the TV show. So I'm looking forward to repaying the compliment. They're lovely people and they're full of enthusiasm for this project." So yeah, I mean, most of the time, Big Finish are pretty cool with their storylines, right? They're obviously not, every single story they ever put out is obviously not amazing, but for the most part, they have a good handle on Doctor Who, and they've got some decent writers. So we'll see, dude. Could be cool. We'll probably pick up the first one, right? Because our writing team will want to review them anyway. So we'll pick up the first one, see how we go, and could be surprise, mate. Could be a surprisingly good. Like Colin Baker, everyone said, whenever you ask, your top 5 Doctors or your top 3 Doctors from Classic Who, poor old Colin, bless him, seldom does he appear in people's top 3s and top 5s and stuff. And his stories are also never highly reviewed that much consistently. But then, on Big Finish, a lot of his stories have been belters, so who knows?
He's absolutely brilliant on Big Finish, mate. And no matter what Jodie's reasons are for coming back so quick, I do think she does have enthusiasm for it. She's obviously got a love for the part. So yeah, I think it's nice that that Yaz is coming back as well. I think there's a bit of familiarity there to have both of them coming back to do the audio. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's good they're back.
It is indeedy. Very cool. Okay, that was the bit of news. Nothing else kicking around in the Who-niverse. In the Who-niverse, so to speak. So that was Jodie Whittaker and Mandip Gill returning to play the 13th Doctor with Big Finish. Before we crack on with our review of some Classic Who animation for this week, just a friendly reminder, just to make sure that If you are listening to the Big Blue Box for the first time, hope you are going to stick around. Make sure you follow or subscribe in whatever podcast app you listen to your podcast on, so you won't miss an episode when they land every Friday. Plus, you'll also get the free monthly roundtable episodes where we draft the writing team in and we chat to those guys about all things Doctor Who. And yes, make sure you're doing that. You can also listen online for free as well, which on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. And there are links there to go off to the socials where we chat Doctor Who throughout the week. So come and get involved over there. And we have a very cool free Discord server. So hop in there and chat Doctor Who with lots of other cool Doctor Who fans like us and all those things. And also don't forget to remember to check out my co-host channel over on YouTube. It's called The Geek's Handbag.
That's right. And if I can stop sunbathing for 2 minutes, I might come in and make a new video. But for the meantime, go and check out my YouTube channel. Lots of videos on there for you to enjoy. Mostly Doctor Who related.
Mostly Doctor Who. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one Star Wars video, which has got about 12 views, but the rest of them is Doctor Who. Well, yeah, there's a lot of Doctor Who stuff on there, but Adam's channel is just chock-a-block full of just loads of very cool geek stuff. It does like unboxings, reviews, location reports, loads of cool stuff. So grab a cup of tea, sit down and do that. And Adam's on the socials as well, under the same name, The Geek's Handbag. So give him a like and a follow as well. Indeed.
Rightio, dude. Review time. What have we got this week?
Yeah, so this week we're diving into something a little bit different. So it's the first Doctor story, and it's the Celestial Toymaker animated.
Now, both of you be very careful. This place is a hidden menace. Nothing is just for fun.
Where's the TARDIS?
We want to go back to the TARDIS. But you'll have to win a few games first.
So we have to win a game before we can get to the TARDIS.
Several games, in fact. Can I begin?
And I suppose these are the people we have to play against.
And if we lose? The game you're going to play is not so innocent as it looks. Be on your guard. If you lose this game, we shall be here forever.
Serve me and this.
Never.
Time and luck are running out.
I see what you mean by it's not being a children's party.
Your party? Is it tea time already?
Yes, indeedy. It's the Celestial Toymaker. It's been a while since we've done any animated stuff for review on the podcast. Now that we've got through pretty much all of the live action stuff across all of Doctor Who in our reviews, we now need to dip into some of the lost stories and the animated stuff. So, yeah, I think did we do the Macra Terror? I'm pretty sure we did that. Did we do the Macra?
I think we did.
Think so, yeah.
Now.
And another one, yeah. So it's now the turn of the Celestial Toymaker that was released fairly recently in animated form. And so the original story was first broadcast on the 2nd of April in 1966. And it finished up at the end of the month. It was written by Brian Hales and uncredited Donald Tosh, directed by Bill Sellers. And it stars William Hartnell as the first Doctor, and then the companions are Stephen and Dodo, so Peter Purvis and Jackie Lane. And then we have a very small supporting cast, so Michael Gough as the Toymaker, and then a few other people knocking around, which we'll get onto. And then the synopsis is pretty short for this one. So the travellers arrive in a strange domain presided over by the Celestial Toymaker, an enigmatic, immortal entity who forces them to play a series of games, failure at which will render them his playthings for all eternity. So, dude, before we get on to our thoughts and stuff, how did you watch this one?
Okay, well, so I bought this when it came out a couple of weeks ago, and I watched it in colour. And then for the review last night, I watched it in black and white, and then I watched the one existing episode afterwards. So I've kind of seen it.
Cool.
I've seen it both. I've seen the animation all the way through in colour and black and white, and I've also watched the surviving part 4.
Cool.
So I've kind of seen it all.
Cool.
Just out of interest, mate, which did you watch?
So I picked this up on Blu-ray the end of last week, and when I first got it, I watched it all in black and white, episodes 1 to 4. Then I went back and watched the first episode in colour, and then I watched the remaining live action last episode. Yeah, part 4. Yeah.
Okay, well, as a story, mate, I've always thought in my head this was a stone cold classic, but I'm talking about just the story now, not the animation style. I'll come on to that. But the story itself is nowhere near as good as I always think it is in my head. I think because I've got the sort of image of the Toymaker, and I do love the concept of them playing games to escape this world and all that. You know, I do like the actual storyline, but there is a lot of padding in this. It's not. Now I've watched it a couple of times. It's not as good as I always think it is in terms of a story. So, going on to the animation style, when this was announced and we saw some screen grabs of this, I was like, "What the heck? What is this?" And I didn't think I was going to buy it, and then curiosity got the better of me, and I bought it. And I'll be honest with you, mate, I was pleasantly surprised, because I think if you were to show people stills of this, the animation looks bad, but I actually think it enhances what is quite a mediocre story. And the other thing that surprises me about the fact that I quite like the animation is that I don't like it when they deviate too far away from what was shown on screen. I get quite annoyed. I'm like, just that's the whole reason I'm buying a missing episode, is I want it to represent what was on screen at the time. And this couldn't be further removed from that. When you watch the telesnaps and stuff, because I was curious to see, I watched a little bit of the telesnaps as well to see what the episode actually looked like compared to the animation. And they've taken huge liberties with it. But I'm going to be honest, and I think this is a bit of an exception. I think it actually works a lot better. And I love the ideas that they've thrown into the animation. So I can't imagine me saying that about any other story, but I think because of the nature of this story, the fact it is in such a surreal world, I think it would have been an even more of a slog to get through the story if it was the sort of 1D animations that we've had in the last couple of years, because I have really struggled with some of the ones we've had in the last sort of 2 or 3 years. That I can't think which one it is. I think it's Fury from the Deep. I still haven't made it all the way through because the animation is so stilted. That I just find myself getting so bored I can't get through it. I mean, I'll have to if we come to review it, but I think although this animation is a strange style, I do find it a lot more watchable than some of the ones we've had recently. The only thing I would say is the faces are a bit distracting. The Doctor in particular looks, I don't know, they just haven't captured Hartnell in the face. I think the same with Stephen and possibly Dodo. So the faces aren't particularly good. But I don't mind the style. I think it suits the story. I love some of the ideas they've put in, like making the Toymaker really big and towering over them, and the scene where he sat on the TARDIS roof at the end, and the plates that get smashed have got the TARDIS. I love all the little ideas. There's almost like a musical montage in episode 3, which I think is beautiful. So for once, I don't mind that they've completely deviated from what we saw on screen. I think because I think this story, although I like the concept, is a slog. There's so much padding and so much. It's a bit slow, and I think if it wasn't an animation like this, I think it would be really hard to get through. And I actually think the animation helps it. I think it actually makes the story a lot more interesting. And just to sort of finish up, mate, although I think the faces on the Doctor and everyone is a little bit off. Well, it's quite off actually. I think the rest of it, I think even the Toymaker, I think the Toymaker looks great. I think the clowns, I think the playing cards, I think the sort of set pieces, I think all the screens that they have floating around them, I think everything else looks really, really good. I love the design of it. I think the playing cards look really creepy, and the clowns, I think they work really well in this animation. I think they look really good. So, yeah. So surprisingly, I thought, if you were to ask me what I thought of Celestial Toymaker, I thought I'd be saying, oh, it's a great story, but the animation's terrible. But actually, now I've watched it a couple of times, I'm actually completely the opposite. I think it's a very mediocre story with a great villain at the heart of it and a good concept. But I actually quite like the animation. I feel like it's not perfect, but it's sort of 90% there. And I like the ideas that they've thrown in to try and make the story more interesting. So it actually works surprisingly well for me. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me, this one, to be honest with you. What do you reckon then?
Yeah, so I'm glad you've said that, dude, because there was such a divisive view on the animation style, right? When this, first of all, when it was announced initially, and we saw some screenshots and a trailer, it felt like anyway, everybody was like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, me included. To be fair, I was like, "Oh dear." Yeah,
same. I thought, well, this is a real change of direction in terms of art style and design and stuff, because typically all the other animated ones have been. Most of them have looked pretty good. A couple of them are a bit choppy and a bit weird in sort of the motion and stuff in the animation, but some of them have been very good. And they've really tried to capture the likeness bang on, from the actors and stuff. Whereas this one, it kind of goes in a bit of a more of a fantasy direction, more of a typical animated thing where they're not trying to capture 100% realism, but they're just trying to sort of bring the fantasy element of the story. And I think that's all the better for it, if I'm being honest with you, dude. Like you, when I first saw the trailer and stuff, I thought, okay, this is weird. And then, not that we're bothered about what fandom thinks about certain things anyway, but the majority of fandom was like, this looks awful. What are they doing? It's really weird. So, yeah, because I hadn't seen it until the weekend, I couldn't really pass too much judgment because I'd only seen the trailer and a few snippets and whatnot. But after watching it through on black and white has got a real coolness to it, if I'm being honest with you, because normally with the animation stuff, I'll always try and watch it in colour first. But I thought, this time I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'll see what the black and white stuff. And even when I went back and watched part 1 in colour, that was very cool, don't get me wrong, but there was something just really cool about the black and white version of it. And so the animation style itself, I think, just lends itself I really well to the style of story that this is. If you think about some of the things that they were trying to accomplish with this, and I was quite surprised when I saw episode 4, the live action version, because in the animated version, they'd taken some creative license with how things were done. Most notably, when they're playing the hopscotch game and they're rolling the dice and whatnot, and they're up against that guy Cyril, and in the animated style, they're on these floating triangles, and it's just an abyss below them with like this sort of electrical thing, hundreds of feet below them and stuff, and it looks very ethereal and very very cool. But then when you watch the live action version, it's just on the floor. It's not like so it's things like that where, because the story necessitated this kind of real high level fantasy thing because of these not elaborate, but these kind of these games that visually needed to look like they were very otherworldly, you could only accomplish so much of that in live action. Even in today's standards, it would be a bit of you'd have to spend a lot of money on visual effects to accomplish what they did in the animation. So even back in the 60s with no money, I think they did pretty well, only from part 4 that we saw anyway. So as you're going through each part and you're looking at, like, when the clowns come out and they do this little obstacle course thing, which sort of defies gravity a little bit, and they're going around there, and then moving on, like you said, to the playing card characters, you could never accomplish that in live action. And so the ability to do that animated, it required a bit more of a quirky style to accomplish that. You know, it's not like you're just got the Doctor. You know, it's, you know, in some animated stories where it's, like I said, it's very much rooted in real world stuff because they're trying to emulate, you know, what was on screen. It's not like you've got Stephen and Dodo just walking down a corridor, you know, or doing something like that. You've got these guys that are in, like, you know, the rules of physics have just been thrown out the window. So you need them to be able to accomplish these weird things. So on 2 counts, dude, I think in some respects, I think this story is better suited to animated anyway. Even though the live action's probably got, you know, some lovely little charming bits and some quirky bits and stuff, because that's just what Classic Who has. It's full of, you know, charm and stuff. But I think this kind of story is better suited to animated in the first place. And second of all, the style that they went with, although it's not been viewed as, you know, that fondly, you know, I don't care about that. You and I think are on the same page here. It works really, really well, this kind of style for the story. So yeah, dude, I think out the gate, I mean, we'll get onto the story now, but certainly presentation wise and the animated style and all that stuff, no complaints really from me, dude. I think I was on board with it very quickly. Like 10 minutes into part 1, I thought, yeah, this is going to be cool. This looks good.
Yeah. And I think one thing I would say is that although this one does deviate a lot from what would have been on screen back in the 60s, watching this animation, and I think this is why, like you, I very quickly came round to it, to my surprise, is because I can see that a lot of thought and a lot of love has gone into this. Like in previous animations where they've sort of changed things and, you know, they've sort of made the sets look nothing like they did, but, you know, they're kind of like you would have had in the 60s, but, you know, they've changed little things. With this, they've kind of tore up the rule book and said, no, we're not going to just enhance it. We're going to just make this, you know, a completely sort of different style of animation and try something new. And I think for the most part, it really works. And I don't think you can just look at a screen grab of it or maybe a sort of 30-second clip, because I think you'd be thinking, well, what? This looks terrible. But if you watch it from start to finish and see how it actually plays along with the story, I think that's when you start to think, okay, I actually can see what the animation team are trying to do here. And although a lot of people have said it looks a bit like a computer game and, you know, the little bubble car that the clowns are in looks very childlike and stuff, I totally get that. But as I said, once you start getting into the story, I think you very quickly get used to this different style of animation. And I personally found it a lot more watchable than, you know, the sort of 1D stick figures walking across, not moving apart from their eyes, going back and forth for about a minute while they try and fill in some dialogue or a quiet moment in a scene. And, you know, some of those animations we've had recently, I just don't know. I just find them so hard to sort of watch, where with this one, although I was getting a bit bored with the actual story, I wasn't finding that because of the animation, if you know what I mean. I was thinking, well, actually, if anything, the animation's keeping me invested in it. So I think it's worth giving a go. If people are sort of thinking, oh, no, it looks terrible from what I've seen, I think watching it as a whole story actually works a lot better than you might think. But it won't be for everybody. I get that a lot of people will think this is a abomination and, you know, it's deviates too much from the story. I totally get that. But the telly snaps are on there. You know, if you want to see it as it kind of as close to the original as we can get, you know, and you've still got part 4 if you want to watch that as the live action episode. So, you know, you can still sort of view it like that. I think there's just an opportunity to watch the story in a more watchable format than telly snaps, really.
Yeah. Telly snaps are a slog, right?
Oh, I tried watching a bit just because I was curious, like, what certain bits look like, because, you know, like I said, the animations, they do go to town a bit in certain scenes. And like I said, that bit in episode 3, mate, and I really recommend watching it in colour, is you know, there's that bit where the Toymaker opens his mouth and all these sort of dancers start swirling around, and it's almost like a sort of dance number for about 30 seconds in the middle, you know the bit I mean? There's like loads of toy makers all in a circle with a drink, and that looks glorious in colour, mate. Absolutely glorious. And I thought, this is the animation team really having some fun now. I think for those people who are a bit on the fence about this, just go into it with an open mind. And I think if you watch it from start to finish, I think hopefully you'll agree with us that actually it does actually enhance the story, which we'll get onto now, is not, as I said, as good as I remember in terms of love the concept, but boy, is it padded. Like the games that we play between episodes 1 and 4, you know, the episodes 2 and 3, my word, especially the key in the pie. I'm like, just please find the key. It's driving, it just goes, some of the scenes go on so long, don't they, mate? Some of the games. And the chairs as well, when they spend so long staring at these chairs. Oh, yeah, some of the games just go on so long that I was thinking, oh, God. It's not as good as I remembered, this story. It's. I think when it's good with Michael Gough and the Doctor and stuff like that, and the part 4 is pretty cool with the hopscotch, but boy, some of the games drag on, don't they, mate? It's not as quite as good as I think it's made out to be, this story, in my opinion anyway. What do you think of it?
Yeah, the story, the concept is very cool. Conceptually, it's great, but yeah, it does drag on. Not even like in the traditional sense that there's like a filler episode. What I mean is in every part, there's like at least 10, 15 minutes where it's just taking ages to accomplish something. So it's like every single moment, it feels like, is incredibly fleshed out to the point where it's like, okay, we get it. You know, we get what you're trying to do here. And like you mentioned, that scene where they're in the kitchen and they're trying to find the key. You know, as funny as some of the bants is, you know, between what's his face, you know, the army general dude. Yeah, and the cook and stuff. You know, they're always at each other's throats, and you know, as funny as some of it is, and you know, it just seems like it goes on for what are these, like 24-minute episodes each, and it felt like some of them were like 44 minutes. You know, and you know the bit where I think because some of the elements within each part were so simplistic, there's only so much that you can do to flesh them out. So we had that a few times, you know, where they're trying to figure out with the card characters which chair to sit in. So it's like, you know, we'll go back to this room and we'll find the doll and we'll test it. Then we go back in this room and we'll do something else, and then we'll talk about it for 5 minutes, and then we'll go and do that. Or even the Doctor just doing the famous puzzle, you know, the
logic game.
Yeah, the trilogic game thing. You know, that went on forever. You know, you've got that cool little robot that's following them around and it's displaying how many moves the Doctor's done. That was, like I said, that's a cool concept and it's cool, but it just felt like these things went on forever. So, yeah, story-wise, dude, great sort of ideas in there, and you can see some real creativity from Brian Hales, and like, you know, we want to do this, you know, basically the toy makers just having fun, basically, and conjuring up these elaborate things. So on paper, some great stuff, but yeah, trying to fill out these episodes with just one simple concept, it turns into a bit of a wee bit of a slog. You know, if they would have combined a couple of those things, and probably you would do nowadays, like, you know, you'd go through and do the obstacle course thing with the clowns, get that over and done with in 10 minutes, and then you'd be on to the key room and finding the key and then something else. You know, if you combine some of those things, it probably wouldn't have been so bad. But when you dedicate an entire episode to one thing, yeah, it does make it a bit of a slog. But some creative stuff in there, dude. Some good things.
Yeah, and I think I like the fact, you know, certain things in the animation look great. I mean, the robot, they've kept the same design. That's one of the things they've sort of kept fairly faithful to what was on screen, because it is a very 60s style looking robot, and that's what I've always loved about it. You know, the TV screen in its belly and stuff like that. And it's also an example of you know, one of the Doctor Light episodes, isn't it? Because for the most part, the Doctor's either invisible or he's just a hand. Because I think did William Hartnell go on holiday or something,
He
or
did,
I don't know
yeah.
what the reason. But
Well,
so he's like
yeah.
a hand for the most part. But then I think that's why I'm glad we've at least got episode 4, because it is nice to see Bill in, the real Bill Hartnell in episode 4. Really, he's really good in it, I have to say. He, really, he's just got such authority, and I love the fact we can at least see an episode with him and Michael Gough on screen together, because I think if anything, out of all these episodes, mate, if we can only have one surviving one, I think it's good that we've got episode 4. I think that's probably the best episode, with the hopscotch, the final sort of game between the Doctor and the Toymaker. So I am grateful that we've at least got that to watch, because I quite enjoyed watching that, in all honesty, even though I'd sort of watched it twice in animation, once black and white, once colour. I was like, oh, okay, let's give the actual episode a watch now. And I actually did find myself, even though it was the third time watching part 4, I did find myself getting quite into it, just seeing Bill on screen and Michael Gough in person as the Toymaker. And it definitely, I don't know, it definitely brought the story a bit more to life. Not that the animation didn't, but it was nice to see, is what I mean. The real thing. And the robot, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the robot, yeah. Yes, it's an interesting one with... it's a bit of a sad story, though. I think when we get into this era, at this point, in William Hartnell's era as the Doctor, because... so he was on holiday for a couple of the episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so he wouldn't have been in them anyway, but they were aware that at this point his health was kind of declining a little bit. So it was difficult for him to be sort of his usual self, if that makes sense, on set and stuff. And his energy whilst in the studio was really impairing his ability to sort of remember his lines and recall his lines and do all that stuff. So, which is why they did this thing where they just make him invisible and you just see his hand. And then for another part of the episode, the Toymaker takes his voice away. It's just to sort of quiet him up. And so in the story, it makes it come across like, he's doing that because he doesn't want the Doctor to help, the companions solve their puzzles. But so while that's partly true, the other part of it is they could just see that William Hartnell was struggling, to do it at this point. So we're coming up to the end of his era, effectively, aren't we? Where are we in this bit? We got a few episodes left of this era, and then he only did 2 episodes in the next one before, we get to the 10th planet. So, and these were all filmed relatively close together. So, yeah, old Bill, bless him, was really struggling at this point. So
I don't think you'd know that from episode 4, though. I still feel like he's got a lot of fire in his belly. I still think he's really good in episode 4. Like, I don't watch it and think, oh yeah, can see Bill was on his way out. I don't get that feeling at all on screen. I mean, I know behind the scenes probably yes, but I don't know. I think he's great in episode 4. I think he fluffs one line at the end, which always makes me laugh, where he says, we will meet again in... Does he say another time? But he doesn't say another time. He says, in time, another... I don't know, he fluffs like the last line, bless him. But the thing was, Bill was nearly replaced in this episode, wasn't he? And so if he had been, regeneration wouldn't have been a thing, because the producer, John Wilds, his intention was to replace Hartnell. When he's made visible again, it would have been a different actor playing the Doctor. That was the initial thought, wasn't it? That's how we'll get rid of, we'll get a new actor in to play a Doctor. When the Toymaker makes him visible again, it'll be a new Doctor. And if they had have gone with that idea, then regeneration would never have been a thing. And I don't know, because that's such an important part of the show now, isn't it? That's how the show has managed to reinvent itself every time we get a new Doctor. It's with the Doctor regenerating. So if they had have gone ahead with that idea of the Toymaker changing his appearance, regeneration would have never been a thing. And I think that's quite interesting. I mean, I believe John Wilds, the producer at the time, because the idea was vetoed, he quit in protest, it says on Wikipedia. So it was obviously his idea of a way to sort of get rid of Hartnell and replace him. But I'm so glad they vetoed that idea, mate. That would have been a terrible and I think almost disrespectful way to to get rid of William Hartnell as the Doctor, to make him invisible, and then when he comes back, it's a different person. I think that would have been really... I'm so glad that didn't happen. And I mean, I don't know what they would have done to carry the show on for 60 years if that had happened. So
that would have been crap, wouldn't it? Yeah,
that would have been.
Yeah, have another actor just appear at, in the closing moments of part 4. It's just,
I wonder what Bill thought of it. Can you imagine him in the? Can you imagine him in the? In the meeting. Bill, we've got this idea. You're going to be invisible, mate, and then you're gone. When you come back, someone else is taken out. I bet he went mad. I bet he was having none of that.
Yeah,
love to have been a fly on the wall.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. Yeah, so I mean, timing wise, it would have been perfect because apparently William Hartnell was at the end of his contract by this point. Oh,
was it? Okay.
Yeah, so it's like you said, it was vetoed, and those dudes sort of, over, who was it? John Wiles, who took over as producer. Yeah, it was his idea, and basically whoever he reported into, they were like, no, you can't do that. It's ridiculous. And then after that, Will Hartnell was given an extension of his, so not a new contract, but his contract was extended for X number of episodes after that. So, yeah.
Oh, mate, it's making me think of that scene in Adventure in Space and Time, which always destroys me.
I know.
When they have the meeting and he's like, change, yes, Sydney, change, that's what it needs. And, heartbreaking, actually. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have wanted to be a fly on the wall on that one,
yeah. Yeah. Before we get on to the actors and stuff, so story-wise, dude, I think we agreed that it's mediocre in terms of as a story, just because it's got these kind of laboured, bits throughout each episode, and it goes on for what feels a very long time just to accomplish some simple things. And conceptually, very good. Execution, not too bad. Animated, thank God for the animated version, because they were able to put some really cool stuff in there. One thing I do want to mention, we're not going to talk about this a lot, but it'd be remiss if we didn't mention it, because there is this kind of there's this sort of lingering cloud over it a little bit, which is the whole sort of racism thing with it. So I think you and I, we never dive into these things and give it too much thought, just because of the age of the show at this point, right? So I think you and I take this similar standpoint. I think somebody put it very well when we was at the BFI watching, I think it was Talons of Weng Chiang, somebody who was one of the hosts at the BFI. Is it Dick what's
Dick
the guy's name? Dick Fiddy, yeah. He basically said, look, it's not our job to censor, to criticise or anything like that. It's their job to sort of, reference that stuff and have it there as a part of history, and you can, debate amongst yourselves, that stuff. So we're along that same thing, right? We're not going to say that these old things, because, it's not a cop out, but it's very true in the sense of, like, TV was very different back then and the world was different. So although it wasn't right, it was just, that was the world back in the 60s, So,
and this is all centred around the Toymaker's outfit and stuff, right? Is that what you mean?
Well, two things. So the Toymaker's outfit. So there's this weird, and I think Russell T Davies was in an interview at some point and basically said that the title of the story, so Celestial, apparently back in the day was a slur against, was it something about Oriental people and how they dress or something like that, or Western people dressing up as Oriental people and stuff like that. It's something along those lines. And then you've got the Toymaker and stuff. And then there's a line in the show where one of the actors, I think it's actually one of the card characters, had basically did the nursery, the rhyme, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And then he goes on and uses the N-word at some point.
Oh, God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that in later releases of this story, they had almost removed it in the mix. They had reduced the volume of that tiny little sound, that clip so much that it's almost indistinct. You can't hear it pretty much. But I think originally the actor just sort of said out the first few words of it and then hummed the rest of it as if he was kind of doing it in his head.
Nice.
And I think it was one of the producers or somebody had said, we need to have that word in there because the rhyme doesn't make sense otherwise. So, it was put in. And so, so there is an element of racism buried in the story, but like I said, we're not here to sort of say, this shouldn't be out in the world. We shouldn't be, it should be censored or anything like that. It's just, it's there. And, I don't want to talk about it too much, but
because it's a can of worms. If we talk about it, we'll be here for hours. You could discuss this sort of stuff until the stars appear in the sky. It's just one of those things, Yeah,
it's just for the sake of being thorough, in our review. And there's bound to be people that will say, "Oh, you didn't mention, this was going on." So that's it. There is an element of that. I'll leave it up to you, listener, if you want to dive into any of that and research that and make your own opinion on that stuff. But just be aware that there is, if you're sort of researching this story and you're looking at it, various articles and blogs about it online, there will be moments where that pops up, and there's a subject there. But so that was that, and then some characters, dude, in the story. It's very difficult to gauge. Other than part 4 that we've got, which is the surviving part, where we see obviously Stephen and Dodo and the Doctor and the Toymaker, but we also see Cyril, right?
Cyril, yeah,
played by Peter Stevens, who also played the Knave of Hearts and also the Kitchen Boy. So he plays multiple characters, but we only see him, like the other actors, in live action in part 4. So it's very difficult to judge the other performances in parts 1 to 3 wholly, because we've only got their voice lines, and it's down to the animators to kind of put their own sort of spin on what they think those characters would have looked like in their world and how they would have reacted and done things. And even some of the characters, like I think you mentioned this right at the beginning. So in previous animated stories, they've tried to emulate as much as possible what the actual actors look like. But in this one, they've kind of gone in a bit of a different direction. It's not an exact interpretation of what what Peter Purves looked like or Peter Stevens looked like as Cyril, especially Cyril. So like the animated character looks very different. Although he looks similar, it looks very different to Peter Stevens in live action. So before we get on to the main characters, in terms of just sort of voice acting and stuff like that, it's a very small cast. So we had Peter Stevens as, like I said, Cyril, Knave of Hearts, Kitchen Boy. What did you think to him? Because as Cyril, he's got this very intentionally annoying sort of way about him where he's very sarcastic, very unlikable. So, which is completely as it was written. So, and then the voice of the Knave of Hearts as well was pretty cool. So, Peter Stevens, dude, he was very cool, I thought.
I really like him as Cyril. I mean, he is very close to a character back in, I don't know, what was it, the 50s? This character, Billy Bunter. I think they got in trouble for him being so closely resembling this character of Billy Bunter, but that's before my time, so I don't really know about that. But as Cyril, I think he really brings the episode to life, because he is so unlikable, but he's sort of fun as well, because he's just so mischievous when he's putting blimmin' powder down on the thing to trip, so they'll fall to their death and all that. I mean, he's such a mischievous character. And I think he's really fun in it, mate. I did have to laugh when I watched the live action episode when he gets fried on the floor and he gets replaced with this sort of dummy that they've it just looks terrible. It looks like he's got a balloon for a head. It looks really, really cheap. But he's good. He's funny, isn't he? And even there's a bit where he really fluffs a line. Like, there's a bit where he says something to Dodo and he completely gets tongue-tied. But, because this television is made this way back in this time, he just carries on. Just keep going, keep going. But yeah, he's good. I like him.
Yeah, he was good, wasn't he? Yeah.
He feels quite dangerous, doesn't he? Even though he's childish, and even though he's sort of a comedic character, he does have this element of danger to him, which I think is really good as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, he was. I agree. He's got this kind of mischievous sort of way about him that was dangerous. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, he was cool. Okay, what about Campbell Singer then, who played? I think his best part in this was the King of Hearts. The way he was just subservient almost to the Queen of Hearts. Like every time he was sort of going off to do something, she would rein him in. He's like, "Oh yes, sorry, yes."
Hello, my dear. Sorry, my dear. Yes.
Yeah. So really cool. And he also played the character Joey, and also Sergeant Rugg. So he was like the big army, typical general in the kitchen and stuff. So. So again, to play multiple parts was very cool, and he was pretty good. I really liked him as a King of Hearts. He was cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was watching the animation, that's one of the things I thought was quite fun with those two characters, because, again, the animation was done in a really weird style where they were sort of crumpled up playing cards, I don't know, they weren't sinister, were they? She was quite sinister, but we'll come on to her. But yeah, he was quite likeable, wasn't he? Of the sort of, hello, my dear, sort of very theatrical. Yeah, fun performance.
Yeah. And if we did have live action versions of this, he also played the tall clown Joey at the beginning.
Oh, right.
In that scene. So he just does the horn sound, we only get that from him sort of thing. So, but yes, that was Campbell Singer. He was very cool. And then an actress called Carmen Silvera.
You stupid woman.
Yep. You'd have known her from a couple of very popular comedies in the UK. Yeah.
That's the catchphrase of a lower low, just in case people are thinking, what is Adam doing? That's what Renee used to say to her character in a lower low every week, wasn't it? Renee, indeed. What are you doing with that woman in the cupboard? You stupid woman.
Yeah. And she came back, after this and played Ruth in the story Invasion of the Dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. She's got a lovely face, actress. She's very recognisable straight away. Even as the Queen of Hearts, under all that makeup and stuff, when you see the publicity stills, there's something, I think it's the eyes, I don't know. She's got a lovely face, that actress. I don't know, I think she's still with us. I got a feeling she may have left
She's not,
us,
unfortunately. No. But yeah, she played, you wouldn't know, but, she played Clara as one of the other clowns.
Oh, right. Okay.
At the beginning. So her voice is very high-pitched and she's doing some stuff there. But most notably, she played the Queen of Hearts and then Mrs. Wiggs in the kitchen. So, but she was a bit like Campbell Singer. Those two had a very good, because they were riffing off each other very well. So when they were playing the card characters, they were very much like your typical married couple, but in a different way to what they were in the kitchen. So in the kitchen, they were like that, always rowing, picking at each other, sort of character. In this one, in the card characters, she was very much the lead. She was in charge, and he was just sort of following after her, sort of thing. So, but she was very cool though, and I loved her voice as the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah,
very over the top and very cool, but great actress though.
A nice actress, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had some other supporting actors. So there were some dancers in it and so on. Mm-hmm. And then the guy who played the Joker card character was a guy called Reg Lever, but there's no details on his other actings. There probably is somewhere on the internet, but nothing of note really. Yeah. So that's it really, very small supporting cast. And then obviously the Toymaker, so Michael Gough as the Toymaker. So again, the animated version of him made him look quite different to his actual Michael Gough's face. Yeah, it is quite different. Not in a bad way, like I said a few times, just a different direction, a different interpretation of those characters. But so Michael Gough then, so a great actor, Michael Gough, and I think it's easy to miss just how much, just the sheer volume of stuff that he's done when he was, his career. He was just an incredible amount of stuff that he was in, huge, like both movie and television. So to have somebody like that in Doctor Who, because I think by the time he did Doctor Who, which was, so in 1966, he had already done like over 50, nearly 60 movies and TV stuff combined.
Yeah.
Loads of theatre work as well. A really big established actor. So to have somebody like that in Doctor Who was, you know, a bit like Hartnell. You know, Hartnell was very established at this point and, you know, was a big popular actor. But yeah, to have a big villain like this dude with someone with as much acting chops and all the experience and stuff was very cool. And he does have this, it's more about the voice for him, for this character, that I found was unsettling for him, dude. He had this real calm, you know, they still do it nowadays in TV and film, but back in the day, like, you know, if your villain had a typical British accent, was very calm and quietly confident, that was more unsettling than having like a big shouty, scary voice kind of thing.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, so he did that really well. And yeah, so he didn't really do much in terms of, we know, in live action. You know, in part 4, he's reasonably static. He doesn't really do much, but he does have a very cool face, sort of mysterious, sinister face and voice. But a good performance from him, dude. More for the voice for me. You know, I know that's an obvious thing because it's animated, but just in general, his voice was quite cool.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. Because it's an understated performance. Yeah, he's not, you know, rushing around or doing anything too wild. He's just, he's very understated, very calm. Like you said, the voice and the face that he's got, he's unnerving, you know. And that line that everyone quotes as well, I think, is a good example of, you know, the use of his voice when he's like, "Make your move, Doctor. Make your final move," and all. You know, it's something in his performance that is so memorable. And I think, you know, when I said at the start of this review that in my head I always think of this as an absolute classic, and then I watch it and it's not. I think it's because I'm instantly think of the Toymaker when I think of this story and how good he is, and I just love the sort of interaction between him and the Doctor, and him getting sort of cross with the Doctor, say, "You're playing too slow, Doctor," and then he's like shouting the move out, and I think it's a fantastic performance. Yeah, I really, really like him as the Toymaker, and I think he's very, very memorable because he was only in this story, wasn't he? Yeah, I don't think he came back.
Yes, he was.
They were going to do Nightmare Fair, weren't they? The Sixth Doctor story. I don't know whether he would have come back for that. I'm not sure, but that, of course, never went into production. I didn't know that he was married 4 times and that his third wife was Annika Wills, as in Polly, the Doctor's second assistant. I just read that on Wikipedia. There you go. I didn't know that. Yeah, so he's married to Annika Wills at one point. But yeah, it's a good performance. Yeah, really, really good. He's a great foe to the Doctor, indeed. I think, in this.
Yes, yeah, defo. And then the kind of stars of the TARDIS team in this one, because of Hartnell's absence for most of it, and they sort of carry it, to be honest with you, until sort of partway through part 4, would be our companions then. So Peter Purvis, Jackie Lane, some real range for those two in terms of at various points throughout the story. You have one of them that just loses patience. It's normally Stephen. Yeah, loses patience a little bit and just wants to crack on. There's a couple of times where he just wants to give somebody a good hiding and just wants to slap a couple of people and get back to the TARDIS, and then Dodo's like, "No, you can't," you know, all the rest of it. And there are some other points where Dodo just, her sort of big heart, you know, she wants to make sure everyone's all right, and you know, so that scene where Cyril pretends to fall over and cut his foot and stuff, and you know, Stephen's like, "Just leave him. You know, he's one of the Toymaker's creations. You know, he's not real. Just whatever. Let's go." And she's like, "No, he's hurt. He's bleeding." And obviously it's a ruse and whatnot. So there's like a kind of sort of to-ing and throwing between the two of them. You know, they both want to get their puzzles solved so they can get to the TARDIS and save the Doctor and so on. But then they get sort of sidetracked a little bit along the way with these characters and so on. So a great double act. And yeah, they really needed to be on their game for this one, just because Hartnell's hardly in it. So, yeah, I thought those two had a great story for this one.
Yeah, they do, actually. And I mean, Dodo is a companion that gets quite a lot of stick, isn't she? Poor Jackie Lane. The character gets sort of forgotten and often is criticised for not being very good. But I think she does get a couple of nice moments in this. And there is a stark contrast between Dodo and Stephen. There's a bit of a... not friction, but Stephen does he's so sort of fired up all the time, isn't he? He's quite bolshy, actually, in this. He's quite passive aggressive, isn't he, Stephen, in this? He's very sort of short-tempered, and obviously Peter Purves is just doing what's in the script, and like he's obviously trying to bring a bit of an edge to it. But there are times when I feel sorry for Dodo, because she's just trying to do the right thing, and Stephen's like having a right old go at her, like, oh, come on. He's really, really sort of short-tempered with her. So I found myself getting a little bit frustrated with Stephen, if I'm honest. And I do stress Stephen, not Peter Purves. Nothing wrong with his performance at all. But, but Stephen as a character, I was like, oh, calm down, mate. Whereas Dodo, I felt like almost wanted to give her a hug, because bless her, she's trying her best all the way through this to solve the puzzles and do the right thing. So I think it's quite a nice story for Dodo, in a way. She's still written to be a little bit, she's not written to be the best companion, but I think she does really well with what she's given. I think it's the best way to put it.
Yes, no, I'd agree with that, mate. Yeah, but they were good to watch though, even in animated form where it's not actually them, but you could tell that just from the voice lines that they were really into it. So yeah, it was good. And then finally, William Hartnell. So yeah, a bit of an unintentional Dr. Light story in a way, because although we have this crazy thing, I still can't believe they did this back in the day, but in a 4-part story, the lead actor just is on holiday for for half the story. Yeah. And then in the other parts that he's in it, I mean, it's kind of, they set the tone and par for the course straight away in the story. As soon as we pick up the story in part 1, the Doctor's been rendered invisible pretty much. And that's really foreshadowing, because the Doctor's, he's not in it a lot at all. And then the Toymaker takes the Doctor's voice away, so he can't even hear him for some of it. So, the parts that he's in it do, like we mentioned earlier, there was this growing concern a little bit for William Hartnell at this point, where he was starting to go downhill a little bit. But like you said earlier, watching the live action surviving episode we've got, you wouldn't really know it though, because the performance that he gives, maybe they edited it a bit together or whatever, I'm not sure, but he does seem like he's the Doctor still.
Absolutely.
In this. So yeah, although he wasn't in it a lot, like some of the voice lines in part 1 and stuff were fairly as you'd expect, I think part 4 is a bit of a surprise. If you just read that before you watch this, that William Hartnell wasn't 100%, and then you watched it, you'd be like, have they got this wrong? Because it doesn't feel like he's not 100%, So yeah, so part 4, the live action version, he's very cool. It's very smiley, upbeat, and typical Hartnell. So it's just a shame that he's not in it that much.
No, because when he is in it, he's great. And actually, they're quite inventive in this story, in the way that they, write the Doctor out, because you still feel his presence throughout the whole 4 parts, which is what I like. So even though he's just a hand or he's invisible, they've obviously got him to record some dialogue for them to play into studio or whatever, or however they did it, I don't know. So he does only come back for part 4, but it doesn't, in some ways, it doesn't feel like a Dr. Light episode, because he is in every episode doing something. And I think that's nice, because in a lot of the other stories where, when William Hartnell gets a holiday, he normally gets knocked out, and then we just don't see him for a couple of episodes until he's back off holiday, and then he's suddenly back in the story. So at least in this one, and again, this is thanks to the nature of this particular story, they're a bit more inventive with actually writing him out to give William Hartnell a holiday. So yeah, I like that. It still feels like the Doctor's a major part of the story, even though William Hartnell is not there, even though he's got like a hand double for like episodes 2 and 3, So yeah, but like you said, mate, when he is on screen, when he comes back for episode 4, I don't look at him and think, I can see why he was about to. It doesn't feel like he's struggling at all to me. I mean, I mentioned that one fluff line, but that's nothing. I mean, he fluffs lines right at the start of his tenure as the Doctor, so it's nothing new there. It doesn't stand out in any way, really. So yeah, I think Hartnell was still on fire, mate. I think he's still got plenty of go in him. Yeah, and also everybody fluffs lines in this one. I noticed. Yes, exactly.
yeah, so I think everybody had a moment where there was a wee fluff going on. So yeah, it wasn't just Hartnell. And did he fluff any lines in this? I can't remember. He might have done in the fourth part, but very small. Okay, and then lastly, Dudders, Dudley Simpson.
Did he do the music in this?
He did, yeah. So it feels like every single classic story that we've reviewed over the last year has been a Dudley Simpson.
Yeah.
Like for the most part, I don't know. But anyway, not too bad, this one. I wouldn't say it's my fave Dudley Simpson one, and it's a bit... I would have liked to have seen more sort of ethereal, experimental stuff in this based on what the story is about. But it wasn't terrible. It was just, I can't really remember much of the music after I've watched it. I didn't sort of walk around humming anything from the story, but
no,
not too bad.
I was a bit surprised when you said it was Dudley, because it didn't have his distinctive sound to me. I thought it was stock music. That's I'm a little surprised at that, because I thought that some of the music was a bit irritating. Like you said, it could have, this is the 60s. Dudley could have been bringing out some really, psychedelic stuff. I'm sorry, Dudley. I love Dudley Simpson, as you know. But if you hadn't have told me this was Dudders, I wouldn't have known. I didn't think the music was particularly great in it. Not bad, but I thought it was stock music, mate. So not one of Dudley's best. I wouldn't buy the soundtrack.
Yeah, true.
Sorry, Dudders.
Sorry, Duds. Yeah, love your work. Usually.
Yeah, I love your work, mate.
Yeah.
Not this one.
Okay, anything else on your notes, bud?
No, I just wanted to quickly ask you what you thought of the conclusion, the way the Doctor throws his voice to solve the puzzle. Was that a satisfying end? Because I feel like there is a good sort of how are they going to get out of this situation at the end. I think the Doctor's just thinks he's just going to go. He's ready to go, and then he can't. So I just wondered how you felt about that resolution, because I think the first time I watched this, I thought, oh, that's really cool. I like that idea. I don't know. And the more I watch it, I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that really works. But yeah, just wondered how you felt about the resolution to the story. The Doctor throwing his voice, because he does it twice, and it's not very clear. Because if he knew he'd got to do the Toymaker's voice, why did he do it twice? Why didn't he just do it? I don't know. It feels a little bit gimmicky as the end. Like they couldn't think of another way to get out of it, but not sure.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It's not a great ending, is it? I think it's it's a little bit like a lot of classic Who. It tends to wrap up really quickly as well, in that last part. Yeah. So, and I don't know. It's a cool idea. It's definitely a cool idea. It's just it's over and done with very quickly. So you can see that for about 10 seconds, the Doctor's like warming Stephen up. He's like, prime the thing.
Controls.
Yeah, let's get ready to do the off, and then it's all right. It's all right.
I do like the bit with the sweet though, where he, I think it turns out to be toothache, doesn't it? But I do think that's a really funny, unintentionally funny ending. Why would he eat a sweet from the Toymaker as well? Surely that's just asking for trouble.
For trouble, defo. Yeah, that's that was actually a funny little moment at the end.
Yeah,
I did chuckle at that to end the story on the Doctor, coughing up a bad. Yeah, it turns out to be toothache, but at that point, it's coughing up a bad sweet. Yeah, so I'll read you to the endings. It's not great, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anything else on your notes, bud?
No,
Before we put a score on?
I think it's all good.
Yeah. Scores then. I think it's my turn, to go first on this one. And so I'm going to combine two scores here. So the score for the story, I'm probably going to give a 4 in terms of the story. But then the reconstruction and the animated style was although it's got this kind of negativity hovering around in fandom about it, I was actually pleasantly surprised after I'd got into it and sort of 10 minutes into part 1 and then enjoying the rest of the story. I actually feel that the animation style was really well suited to it, and it wasn't a bad watch at all. It was something different, basically.
Yeah.
That was welcome just because of the style of the story and being so out there. So for that part of it, I'm going to give a 7. So I think combining them to both together. I think I'm going to go with a 6.5.
Okay, yeah.
For the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, mate. Because I think I'm absolutely with you there. I think I completely agree. So I'm going to go with 6.5. Did you say 6.5 for the combined?
Overall, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'd written, and I think I agree with what you've just said. Yeah, completely.
Oh, nice. 6.5s, ahoy.
It's not quite a 7, but yeah, 6.5.
Yeah, okay. I think, there's a couple of elements in the story that, we could sit here all day and say, we're not expert TV writers or anything like that. We don't claim to be, but we could sit here all day and say they should have done this and that. But it is what it is in terms of, at least we have something mostly coherent to watch. Before this animated story, we had nothing really, apart from one episode. So it's good that we can watch it, and the animation style, that's down to your, it's pretty subjective.
It absolutely is, mate, and it is down to personal taste. I watched a couple of reviews of this before I bought it, and some people really did not like, even when they watched it, they did not like it. Other people really didn't like how much they changed from the original concept. I think I'm normally like that, but I have to say I found this a very pleasant surprise. I enjoyed it for the most part. In terms of the animation, I thought they actually did a really nice job on it. So much to my surprise, but it is down to personal taste, I think.
Indeedy. Yes. All right then. So 6.5 each from us. What did our awesome listeners think? Over on the Twitter, we had the Doctor Who Show podcast.
Oh, hi guys.
Hello. So I think this is Rob, says, my reaction to the still images that first emerged was yuck. Although I pondered if the weird look might suit the story. Thankfully, that thought was correct. While this style might not suit, say, the Smugglers, it looked really great when it came to the story at hand, which is bang on, I think, which is our view on it, yeah. It wouldn't have suited, like, a more grounded, real-world story, like the Smugglers or anything like that, or the Highlanders or anything like that. But for this kind of story, yeah, it's bang on.
Yeah, I agree, totally.
Yeah. Titan Sci-Fi, Tom, says, it's a wonderful artistic take of the missing story from the 60s. The story isn't the best ever, but reminds me of a filler episode we would get in the modern era. A 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Toko BL Hoovian, another Tom, says, despite being hyped, it's boring and forgettable. If the other 3 episodes existed, it would be enjoyable, but the animation doesn't do the story justice. I'm giving it 1 out of 10. Which isn't like me. I'm a fan of 60s Who, but it's bad. Worse than AUC 2 to 4, Web Planet and Gunfighters. Oh dear, Tom, you're not a fan.
Oh, blimey.
One of our writers, Jordan, says, very interesting take on the story. Obviously, the 60s budget wouldn't stretch to something like this, so it's enjoyable reimagining. The story itself is overhyped, and the facial likenesses are awful, but the surreal aspects improve an otherwise plodding script.
Yeah.
Which is also true, yes. Gary Finney's says, I absolutely loved it. I have to say it's my least favourite Hartnell story, but this animation really managed to bring a dull story to life.
Oh, there you go.
Facial likenesses of the main cast could have been better, but other than that, it's superb. 9 out of 10 from me.
Cool.
9. And lastly on Twitter, the Eternal Feline says, have never particularly rated this one from the audio. The new animation style was okay, considering the team were behind the disastrous Web episode 3. It's actually pretty good, but by no means perfect. It's a rather mediocre story, in my honest opinion. I would struggle to give it more than a 6 out of 10.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair dues. Thank you very much. And over on the Facebook, Alex Bobbins says, I love this. While I appreciate that we have the 2D animations for missing episodes, they don't always hold my attention. This was wonderfully bonkers, sinister and tons of fun. A fresh take on an old classic. Exactly what Doctor Who should be. 7 out of 10.
7. Okay.
Sean Mundy says, I like this animation. It takes a little bit to get past the look of Stephen and Dodo, but the Doctor and Toymaker look great. I think the animation really brings a lot to the story with great visuals and would never be achieved at the time. 7 out of 10 for the animation. Cool. Another one of our writers, Harry Walker, says, not seen the animated version, but The Telesnap version I've seen is a bit gimmicky. Stephen and Dodo play a game and then another and then another. But I do like that it tries to be a bit more fantastical. Racism aside, it's fairly watchable. 6 out of 10 from Harry.
Okay, cool.
And lastly, Andrew Stewart says, whilst I myself haven't watched the animated version, I've always really enjoyed the story. It does get annoying that Hartnell was only in it for the first 2 minutes and the last 5 minutes. However, it's an enjoyable watch. And for me, Michael Gough is a better perceived toy maker than Neil Patrick Harris. 8.5 out of 10.
Cool. 8.5.
Coolly, yeah. So, dude, surprisingly, considering how fandom absolutely destroyed this when it was first announced, some decent scores there, dude. So I think the average is going to be a 7.
Yeah, that's decent, isn't it?
7 out of 10.
Too bad.
Yeah. Indeed, yeah. So that was the Celestial Toymaker. Thank you very much for your thoughts and reviews on that. And dude, what are we going to be reviewing next week?
Well, we've actually reviewed nearly all the stories now. There's a few animations I think we haven't done. And there's only one complete story. I think I'm right in saying this. There's only one complete story left that we haven't reviewed. So we'll be sticking with the First Doctor and reviewing The Chase.
The Chase.
Daleks and Mechanoids next time.
Crikey.
Yeah.
Mechanoids, indeed, yeah. Alrighty. And I think on that then, let's wrap there for episode 405.
Alrighty.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Big Blue Box podcast. That was episode 405 with our review of the Celestial Toymaker animated version, plus a little bit of a news roundup for the Big Finish peeps with Jodie and Mandip coming back for the 13th Doctor Adventures. So yeah, well, that's an interesting one. We'll come back to that next year when they come out and give you our thoughts on at least the first story for Jodie's new era, I guess, on Big Finish. Next week, as Adam said, our review story is going to be The Chase, so get your iPlayer fired up or your DVDs, whatever, because we'll be asking for your thoughts and reviews as always. Make sure you're listening to the Big Blue Box podcast either in your favourite podcast app, and make sure you're following or subscribing so you don't miss an episode when it lands every Friday, plus the monthly roundtable eps, which are really cool with the writing team, so you'll get that as well. And you can listen online at the website bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. And all the reviews and articles and whatnot are on there from the writing team. We're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Give us a like and a follow as we chat Doctor Who throughout the week, plus jump into the free Discord server. Don't forget to check out Adam's channel on YouTube. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yeah. Check out my YouTube channel. Also on all the socials. Can't be bothered to name them. You know the ones.
You know the ones. Just
all
go
the
on
usuals.
there, follow Adam. Yeah, all the usual stuffs. We're on all of them, so go and do that. And we chat Doctor Who and other geeky stuff throughout the week, so just come and get involved with all that stuff. Until next week, bud, for episode 406. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,
Hey.